Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'll stop in time for you to kind of pick up where you left off on all that good visiting. And we're glad you're here. And this is the first Wednesday night since the time change. You know, and prior to that, it was a little dusky dark when we got here. Well, now it's dark. I mean, dark. And it's just, I think. The days will keep getting shorter and shorter, and then after the 22nd of December, it'll swing the other way. But right now, we're in that short day, and but appreciate you being here and being a part of our class tonight. We've got several congregational announcements, and then some very important prayer requests that we wanted to end with. But as we begin, we kicked off our annual Thanksgiving food drive this past Sunday, and the response has just been overwhelming. We've committed to about 100 bags, and they were put out, and I think there may be 8 left. So everybody has just done extremely well with that. The budget for those Lisa had figured was about $25 per bag, and Frank Wood brought his in, and I asked him. He said $23 and some change, just a few pennies shy of $24. So that's pretty close, and so that gives you any idea if you want to do that, or if you'd rather donate to the purchase of those turkeys, then that's completely left up to your discretion. But that kicked off. The deadline for that is the 19th of that Sunday, the 19th before Thanksgiving, and we struggled about, okay, well, where do we put them? And this seemed to be the least out of the way. The fellowship hall. The back foyer is problematic because of the homeschool association that's here on Thursdays, and we've got 160 plus kids running everywhere. So we figured this would be the best place if we can keep me and the worship leaders from tripping over them between now and the 19th. But anyway, they'll be ferried up to the fellowship hall that afternoon on the 19th and distributed on the following Monday, so remember that. This coming Sunday, of course, Friday is the observance of Veterans Day, and for the last several weeks, we have been asking our members who are veterans to submit your name to the office with following information: the branch of service, number of years, and highest rank in any combat duty. And so tonight is the deadline for that. If you've not turned your form in, then please do that. There'll be a list printed in the bulletin this coming Sunday. There are still information forms available at the tables if you'd like to get one and fill that out, or you can send the information in by email. But just please do that before, by tomorrow. Ladies' Love Circle for November will be tomorrow at 10 o'clock at the home of Marilyn Bass. Dina Saudy will be at the building at 9:30 if anyone wants to ride, and they'll carpool to Maryland's if needed. The Meridianville Church of Christ is hosting the Living with Loss workshop this coming Friday through Sunday. This is for widows and widowers. The minister is Dean Miller, founder of Widowhood Workshop. There's a flyer on the bulletin board across from Von Enlow's office, and you can get more information. Call the church office, and if you're interested in that. The next meeting for the ladies' Saturday Bible class is this Saturday on the 11th at 10 o'clock here at the building in the ladies' classroom. Parents, if your teen is going to the escape room this coming Sunday, please be sure that a waiver is completed for each child. Daniel sent all parents a message with a link to that waiver so you could complete that and send it back to him. There will be a 2024 Montana mission meeting next Wednesday, November the 15th, 6 o'clock in the young adult classroom. Any high schoolers who might be interested in going, then that meeting is the initial one to plan for this coming summer's meeting. And it's hard to believe they're already laying the groundwork for the mission trip next July. But that tells you how much planning goes into that. So be mindful of that, parents, if you have a teenager who would be interested in going. Now, as far as our prayer list is concerned, in addition to what we have in the bulletin, and there are bulletins from this past Sunday that are still available, we've had 2 additions. Charles Pyatt from up on Scant City, his son Daniel Pyatt has been diagnosed with skin cancer, and his outlook is of concern, and Charles has asked that we add him. I think Daniel is in his 40s, and so we have been asked to remember Charles's son Daniel Pyatt. So add him to your prayer list. And then one of our ministers in Cuba, in fact, Pedro Ferrer was the first preacher that we began to support back in 2008. And he has been in some decline in health for the last several months. I'd gotten an email from him last Monday, and he told me that they thought he had hepatitis. And then a follow-up email I got Sunday afternoon, and it's not hepatitis. It is in fact cancer, so widespread to this point that he is now bedfast. So remember him. Remember Pedro Ferrer. That last name is Ferrer, and his condition is dire at this point. And we are in the process of trying to get some additional funds down there so they'll be able to at least get some basic items for his care. But as of Monday, he was in a weakened state. His heart rate is beginning to decline. So remember him in your prayers. Are there any others that we might not know about? James? Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. What was his first name, James? Do you remember? James Henry. Okay. And he passed away Monday? Okay. Right, Henryville Methodist, out there by the old Henry Farm. Okay. So remember the Henry family and the passing of James Henry and his funeral this coming Friday. Anybody else? Okay, let's bow. Father, we pause thanking you for the opportunity to come together tonight. We are blessed whenever we're able to be together and to share the love and the joy that that relationship with you fosters. But it also gives us an opportunity to call to mind situations and individuals who are in difficult situations. We are very mindful tonight, Father, of the diagnosis that Daniel Pyatt has received. We pray that everything is being done to put this cancer in remission and to slow that down, and that he would see an improvement in his condition. We're very mindful of Pedro Ferrer and the dire situation that he's in. Pray for his wife and for their family and for the church there in Sagua as they do everything they can to ensure that his needs are being met, and that they would sense your presence in a very, very special way. We're mindful, Father, of the Henry family and the passing of this loved one. And we pray for them, and as they make preparations for that memorial service, that they too would know of the support and the love of this community, and more importantly, that they would know of your abiding presence. Father, we are a blessed people because of your word and because of its relevance and its simplicity, and the opportunity that we have to just exchange ideas and thoughts as we see them revealed to us. And we ask that continue on us tonight. We are very mindful, Father, of the situations throughout the world, and we are mindful of the wars that are being waged even at this current hour. And we pray, Father, for a conclusion to those hostilities, that complete victory might be realized, and that a long-term peace might result. All these things we pray in your Son's name. Amen. Okay, we are in John chapter 15, and what I'd like to do, and I got, at the beginning of the 15th chapter, and I'd like to kind of get through verse 11, if that's possible. But in order to do that, and if y'all don't mind, I'm going to lean up against this table here. I've been threatening to get me just a little high-back bar stool and just kind of sit back and recline. But I'm reminded of a class that I had when I was at Lipscomb back several years ago. It was a class on basic psychology, and we had a good teacher. Dr. Martin was extremely effective, and he was talking to us about conditioning behavior in that particular class. And that class, I can't remember if it was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, but after we got into the course, we had some guy, I think he ended up being a lawyer, but he had this bright idea. He said, this is what we need to do. This is before Dr. Martin got in there. He said, you know how he stands behind the podium, and then he notoriously would walk out from it, and then he would lean up against the wall. And he said, what we need to do is, as long as he's standing behind that lectern, we're going to keep asking questions, and he said, but if he walks off and leans up against the wall, then everybody just kind of shut down. And he said, let's see if we can't condition him. And sure enough, about halfway through the semester, he quit doing that. And somebody finally pointed it out to him and said, you realize that you don't even leave behind the podium anymore. And he said, you know, you're right. And he said, I've just failed all of you. So, but it's funny how that kind of worked against him. And like I said, I think that guy, I don't know if he ever graduated or not, but it was fun. I mean, we didn't have cable television on campus then, so you had to come up with any number of ways to amuse yourselves. But what I'd like to do is look at this, and this goes all the way back, even in the 13th chapter, that there is a recurring correlation that Jesus is establishing, and he does this in chapter 14. He is going to do it in chapter 15. I mentioned last week, if you count how many times he uses the verb abide in the first 11 verses here in chapter 15. And if you do thematic study, then that would be, obviously, that would be one that you would want to step back and look, take a little bit closer look to that. And the reason is there is a direct correlation between obedience and love. Jesus says, if you love me, then you'll obey. You'll do what I say. And then he makes, throughout the course of this discourse, he makes some very emphatic statements. Like we noted back in chapter 14, when even though it's directed in verse 6, it's directed toward Thomas's statement. He was addressing all of them. When he said, I am the way, the word for way is the same word for the word road in the Greek language. Rather interesting. When he says, I am the way, he says, I am the road. I'm the road. I'm the path. That's how you get to God. And so as Christians, we insist that Jesus is not a way to God. He's the only way. And that's especially interesting right now. In fact, what we're going to delve into a little bit is some of the alternative thoughts to that, because quite frankly, there are professing Christians in the world who are embarrassed by the idea of insisting that Jesus is the only way to God. That they're somewhat embarrassed because it's not politically correct. Let's just be honest about it. It's biblically correct to say that Jesus is the only way, but at the same time, it's politically incorrect. And so what I'd like to do for just a few moments is talk about some of the ways of trying to explain away this, because, when Jesus says that, when he says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and then as we noted last week, where he makes the statement, verse 5 of chapter 15, for apart from me, you can do nothing. And by the way, I looked up that word nothing, and you know what it means? Nothing. It just means zero, of no effect. You can't accomplish it. It's the same word that Paul uses in 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak with the tongue of men and angels and yet don't have love, it accomplishes me nothing. In other words, I made absolutely zero. So it's the same word, it's the same concept. And so you get to this point in this dialogue, or this, Jesus sharing all this, and that's the one thing that has to be established, and that is there's no other option. There's no middle ground. You either put your faith and trust in Him and you're obedient to Him, or you don't. And yet there is this concept, and I see this from time to time in other belief systems. And one of the troubling aspects of this is this de-emphasis that's kind of comes around from on a regular basis. This a de-emphasis in doctrine and belief. It's not a week goes by that I don't either have a conversation or come in contact with someone who has talked to someone, and this basic idea is, it's not really that important about what you believe, because we all come together and we're all basically going to the same place, and this is the pluralism that we're seeing developed, and it's hatched out basically from a moral relativist. Pluralism is the idea that all religions are basically true, and that ultimately we're going to all end up, with God anyway. That it doesn't really matter what you believe, because all roads lead to God. You just pick the one that you like, and as long as you're sincere, that's all that matters. And I here again, this goes back to one of the things that I run into all the time, is because you look at the rapid growth within the religious world of of movements and big mega churches that quite frankly, their doctrine is heretical on so many fronts. But people look at that and go, can all those people, you look at the thousands and thousands of people, and here again, my go-to poster child is Joel Osteen. And on the Sunday night, you channel surf and you see his broadcast, 25,000 people there. And a seeker, a non-member would look at that and go, can all of those people be wrong? Well, the thing about faithfulness and obedience is it's not about numbers. It's not a popularity contest. It's not a beauty contest in that regard. In fact, Jesus had already said, as far as that was concerned, in the Sermon on the Mount, he said what? Many will be called, few will be chosen. There's a broad way that leads into destruction, and many go there, but narrow is the way that leads to life, and few. In fact, I'm going to get to a statistic here in a little bit, and I think you'll agree with me that is troubling. And so with the pluralism that's in every other facet of life, and at some point we kept waiting for it to infiltrate, Christianity. Well, it has. And the test is not truth, but how sincere are they? I'll come back to that in a moment too. Pluralism is kind of like a spiritual buffet, and you pick and choose what you like from all these other systems, and as a result, we have in American culture. In fact, there was a survey entitled "What Americans Believe." 64% of American adults said that when Christian, Buddhist, and Muslims pray, they are actually all praying to the very same God. 64%. Now, if that's true, that all faiths really do merge together, then they're all talking about the same God, they just have a different look. Well, quite honestly, God must be very confused. Maybe even a bit schizophrenic. Because God tells Muhammad that everyone needs to make a pilgrimage to Mecca, and then he tells Christians that it doesn't matter where you worship. Well, God can't make up his mind. He tells Christians that it's okay to eat meat, but then he tells Hindus that eating meat is immoral. How do you reconcile those two? And some belief systems teach that it's okay for men to dominate women, that women are to be subservient to men. Christianity, on the other hand, teaches that we're supposed to put each other's needs ahead of our own. Here's a dirty little secret. On the issue of slavery, some world religions teach that it's okay, i.e. Islam. The Bible teaches that it's wrong. So, what about the issue of salvation? Or the afterlife? There are some religions that teach that when you die, that's the end. That's all there is. And how can we say that we're all going to the same place when all of us really don't even want to go to the same place? This is what a lot of people think and what a lot of people believe. It doesn't matter what faith you choose, just choose one and follow it because we're going to all end up in the same place. Well, that's pluralism. Another one that is equally troubling is this idea that, and people believe, and many belief systems teach this, that the way you get to God is you work your way. You chronicle this many good actions. You catalog enough good things, and the good things outweigh the bad things, and eventually God is going to give you the nod. And a lot of people believe that's what it's all about. And I'm not going to take the time tonight to talk about how Christianity counters that, because as we've noted throughout the study of the Gospel of John and throughout all of the New Testament, the emphasis is not on what I've done, but the emphasis is what God has done. What God has done through Jesus Christ. Do you realize that every other religion says you have to do something? But Christianity says Jesus has already done it. He's done what we could not do for ourselves. And these other belief systems, pray 5 times a day, give alms, use a prayer wheel, observe the Sabbath, avoid certain foods, given enough of those, then you'll make it to God. Well, the problem with that is you have to twist and contort so many passages of Scripture to come away with that. And the difference between Christianity and every other belief system is the fact that Titus, Paul told Titus in chapter 3 and verse 5, God saved us. And it was not because of any good works that we ourselves had done, but because of His mercy, He saved us. And it's not about trying really hard to get into heaven, but it's by putting your faith in Jesus Christ, because He's already said, if you love, notice the order of that back in John 15, if you love me, then what? Yeah, it's not the other way. If you keep my commandments, then what? It starts with, okay, if you love me, then it's understood that what? Then you're going to keep my commandments. So we got pluralism, almost this universal idea. Then we've got this idea that if you just work hard enough. But to be honest, the one that probably describes where most people are, and I would say 2/3 of the world's population, is this. And that is, they're wrong. Now, I know when I say that, and you're watching this on the live stream, for me to say that is probably one of the most unpopular things that anybody could tell somebody else. To tell somebody that they're going the wrong way spiritually is not acceptable. You just don't do that. You don't go around. In fact, I'm trying to think of the quote that I had, and I want to be sure and get it before I ran out of time. And that's simply this. J. Herbert Kane said, the most offensive aspect of 20th century Christianity is its exclusiveness. Now think about that. The most offensive aspect of 20th century Christianity is its exclusiveness. And it is. To a lot of people, it's offensive for you to have the nerve to tell somebody else that what they're doing is wrong. Nobody wants to be told that. If you're working on something, let's say you're painting your house, and you got a neighbor or somebody comes over and they just stand there for a minute and watch you, and then you notice they're there, and finally you stop and you turn and you look at them and they say, well, you're doing that all wrong. Yeah, it's the same idea. I've told you before about the guy who was going down I-65, and as he was driving, his cell phone rang, and his wife was calling him, and she was upset. She said, honey, be very careful. I just heard on the radio that there's a car going the wrong way on I-65. And he said, it's not just one car, it's hundreds of them. Well, you got to think about that one. I know, the time change threw that one on you. It's hard to tell people that they're going the wrong way, because people don't think they're going the wrong way, or that's not the way they would be going. So when we say to people that they're going the wrong way, they get defensive and they feel like we're attacking them. Here's what's interesting, and where I think a lot of this developed. Under our Constitution, our religious beliefs are equally valid. Now stay with me. Hear me clearly on this. According to our Constitution, our religious beliefs are equally valid. That's one of our greatest freedoms. We can believe whatever we want to believe. But people have taken that to mean that not only can you believe what you want to believe, but that all beliefs are equally valid. And for me to say that my way is the right way and your way is the wrong way, well, some are thinking, no, that's unconstitutional. No, it's not. It's not unconstitutional. And our Constitution protects opinions. Now follow me on this. Our Constitution protects opinions. It says nothing about opinions or which faiths are true or questionable or false. That's not the role of it. And people, I think, are buying into this idea that not only are all religions equally protected, which they are, but they're all equally true. That can't be right. And I don't want to delve into this because I confuse myself, but let me see if I can't explain this. It made sense this afternoon, but that's been a while. But to say that all religions, are equally true, that can't be right. Logically speaking, this is how that would have to work. All right, all religions would have to be wrong, or one would be right and the rest would be wrong. You follow me? They can't all be right. So either they're all wrong, or one would be right and the rest would be wrong. Here's why. Because they each have mutually exclusive claims. Truth by definition excludes that which contradicts it. You believe that? To say 2 and 2 is 4, or 3 plus 1 is 4, or 0 plus 4 is 4, then we don't have to delve into, well, what about 2 plus 1? What about 3 plus 4? No. Truth by its very definition excludes anything that would contradict it. So if there's a truth that you believe is right, and based on what Jesus is saying, that He is the road, He is the way, He is the truth, so if we believe that, if there is something that contradicts it, then what? That has to be wrong. I was thinking about this the other day when we were down in Baldwin County and went to the Ross Chandler's wedding on Saturday night. We were coming out and went to church in Robertsdale with Audrey and her family, and we were coming back, headed back this way, and there was a big sign right there on 59, the main drag from Loxley into Robertsdale, and there was a big sign advertising this ecumenical meeting of churches, Protestant churches, that they were all getting together and praying for Israel and the conflict and everything that's going on, which I applaud that completely. If they were willing to do the same thing for the Ukraine. But see, what probably is going on is a lot of churches that are premillennial in their doctrine are really concerned and are really interested in what's happening with the state of Israel. Why? Because that entire belief system kind of rises and falls on what happens with the state of Israel. I mean, you got to have the rapture and then the tribulation and the 1,000-year reign, and James and I were talking about this yesterday morning. What is perplexing about all of that is all the prophecies that they embraced to solidify this was talking about the Jewish people then, either before or after the exile. And the Jewish faith that's being practiced right now is not anywhere close to biblical Judaism. Not even close. Why? They don't have a temple. They don't have the priesthood. They don't have the sacrificial system. They're following the rewriting of Judaism that the Pharisees took on in the latter part of the first century after the destruction of Jerusalem, when the oral traditions were codified in Midrash and Mishnah and Talmud. So the Judaism that's being practiced, even Orthodox Judaism in the modern era, is nothing like the Judaism that we read about in the Old Testament. It can't be. There's no way. So to say, okay, there's a common ground there. No. I didn't finish my equation. Truth by definition excludes that which contradicts it. So if there's a truth that you believe is right, if there's something that contradicts it, then that has to be the wrong way. So logically speaking, all religions couldn't be wrong, but there's no way they can all be right. Why? Because we contradict each other. And I'm all for taking time and effort to look at what we can agree on, but ultimately it's those contradictions that are mutually exclusive. So for me to say that my way is right and someone else's way is wrong, well, then what's the modern word? Then I'm labeled what? Well, you, sir, are intolerant. Well, here's the issue with that. The word tolerance is one word, but there are two meanings now. The traditional tolerance says that I can value and accept somebody even without agreeing with their beliefs or their behaviors. That for X number of decades in American culture, that was our understanding of the word tolerant. I can value and accept somebody even though I don't agree with their beliefs or their behaviors. What has happened is the LGBTQ community, the moral relatives of the day, have hijacked that word and have redefined it, and they're forcing that definition down our throats. Because the new word, the way it's used most of the time these days, is that every individual's beliefs, values, and lifestyles are equally valid, and the only way that can be sustained is to develop this idea that truth is relative. And to be truly tolerant in the modern era, I have to be able to say that your truth is just as true for you and mine is just as true for me. That's not truth. And under this new tolerance, there are some words, as I said, that have been redefined. One word that has been redefined is disagreement. Disagreement is now labeled as hate speech. That's hate speech now. When I tell someone that I'm right and they're wrong, and the road they're going on is the wrong way, then you're hateful. And love trumps hate. So you're just being hateful. No, it's not about that. And granted, we need to be able to balance love with truth, but we also have to understand, and we'll talk about this a little bit Sunday, we've always been reminded that no, the world's not a battlefield, it's a mission field, but we are at war with Satan in that regard. And I think sometimes one of the most loving things we can do is to disagree with someone. Let's say and I tried to illustrate this a while ago and didn't do a good job, but let's say I'm traveling with a friend and we're going towards Huntsville, and I know the way because I've been there numerous times, and we find out that there's a wreck up on top of Montesano, and I say, well, I can go Hobbs Island Road. I can avoid all that. I can turn left there in New Hope, and I can go Hobbs Island Road, and then all of a sudden the guy that's with me says, "Wait a minute, this is the wrong way." And I tell him what? Well, no, I have, and this if you use GPS. And I have to turn the sound off on it because I can't stand that woman's voice telling me, recalculating. And I just read on there, rerouting, and I will say, no, woman, I know where I'm going. Don't tell me I'm going the wrong way. I know, And then if you watch where they reroute you, they want you to go up there and do a turnaround and go back the way, it's really something. Sometimes that's the most loving thing that you can do is disagree. There's another word that's been redefined, and it's the word conviction. Conviction is now labeled fanaticism. You see, under this new tolerance, if there's no absolute truth, if there's no right way, and there's no way or reason to defend truth, so when I defend my faith, when I'm convicted about what I believe, then I'm a religious fanatic. And we have that word. You do realize even under this new concept of tolerance, the word gospel has been redefined. And you'll hear gospel is described as discriminatory because it leaves some people out. Well, no, it doesn't leave people out, but it's not for everybody. Josh McDowell, several years ago, in his book, The New Tolerance, addresses some of the concerns with this. And in his book, he talks about the difference between the tolerance of the modern era and biblical love. And he says, tolerance says you must approve of what I do, but love says I want you to do something harder. I must love you even though your behavior and your beliefs offend me. He said that's the harder track to take, which is probably why most people don't do that. And so we get this idea of to be tolerant means a lot of things that it was never meant to mean. And so when we go back and we read Jesus' words about about being the only way and the truth and the life, it's compelling because you realize that Christianity is held to a different standard than other belief systems. Several years ago, there was a school system that had where they were going to take 4 days and have someone represent the particular belief system and come in and talk to the student body about it. Monday, there was a Muslim came in and talked about Islam. Tuesday, there was a Buddhist that came in. I can't remember what Wednesday and Thursday, but Friday, preacher came in to talk about Christianity. And everything was going okay until at the very end, when the guy made the comment, he said, we believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and the only way to get to heaven was through him. And he quoted John 14:6. Came time for question and answer. One of the students raised his hand and he said, I used to be a Christian, but I'm not anymore because they believe everybody else is wrong. Another female student who didn't even raise her hand just spoke out and said, what gives you the right to say that yours is the only way to God? Didn't say that about the Buddhist. Didn't say that about the Hindus or the Muslims or the New Age. But Christianity is held to a different standard. You see, Peter said in Acts chapter 4 and verse 12, salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to men by which we must be saved. Now, if that's true, then first I would have to say that it's not narrow-minded. Why? Because it's not based on opinion, it's based on what? It's based on truth. And it's based on evidence. And it's never narrow-minded or intolerant to make a decision based on truth. Lee Strobel, in his book, God's Outrageous Claims, tells the story about a daughter born to them. A few weeks after she was born, she developed jaundice. And many of us have had, to experience that, have had one, maybe more of your kids that right after they're born, they develop jaundice. And you know what it is. It's a little bit of a liver issue that causes the whites of the eyes and the skin to become a little yellow. And they took their daughter to the hospital. The doctor checked her out and explained that this could potentially be devastating, but there was a cure. What's the cure? Yeah, sunlight. Roll the crib over by the window to where she can get more sunlight. And the skin will absorb that light and stimulate the liver to function properly. That's it. It's been that way for decades. That was all, even now, with all modern medicine, if you take a baby to the doctor and that's what they're going to tell you to do. Strobel says, let's imagine this. Imagine that the parents would say to the doctor, well, that just seems too easy. Just putting our daughter under a light is just too simple. What if we did this? What if we scrubbed her really, really well and then dipped her in bleach? Wouldn't her skin color return to normal? Would that work? And the doctor would have to say, you don't understand, there's only one way to cure jaundice. And she has to be exposed to sunlight. Maybe the couple would say, well, we don't like this one-way thing. Give us some other options. What if we just pretended like everything was okay? What if we sincerely believed that our daughter was supposed to be yellow? And wouldn't in the end everything be okay if we sincerely believed it? And the doctor would have to say, you could sincerely believe it, but what? You'd be sincerely wrong. You see, sincerity is not the test today. Never has been, by the way. It's not about how sincere you are, because there are a lot of sincere people, and I say this at the risk of being, terrorists are sincere, but they're wrong. And the doctor would go on, you're hesitant because it sounds too easy or too simple, or that there's only one way, but this is how you cure jaundice. And I would have to think that at some point the doctor would point behind his desk and say, you see those diplomas? You see those diplomas that are framed and on the wall? I'm a doctor. I have a medical degree, and I've cured hundreds of babies with jaundice, and you can trust me based on my credentials. Now, would it be intolerant or narrow-minded for that couple to say, well, we're just going to choose another way to cure our daughter of jaundice? No, it's never narrow-minded to act on what? To act on truth. And the truth is, we can trust Jesus Christ. Why? Because He has the right credentials. He fulfilled over 300 new Old Testament prophecies. He worked miracles. He lived a perfect life. He died an atoning death, and He rose from the grave. And we can trust Him that what He says is true. Now, there are a lot of people in the religious world that are saying, you know what? I wish there was some other way. What if we tried some other way? Well, you could try, but what? You're not going to get where you want to go. But what if we're sincere? What if we just sincerely believe that we don't have the problem? Well, again, you can believe that, but you'd be wrong. There's only one cure for our sin problem, and that's Jesus Christ. In one of her columns, Dear Abby has this politically correct idea when she says, quote, the height of arrogance is to try to tell somebody the errors in the religion of their choice. Well, where is she missing it? You're not choosing a political party. You're not choosing what school to pull for on Saturday. That is a personal choice. We're talking about issues that have eternal consequences. So it's not the height of arrogance. You know, when Paul said, Romans 3, verse 23, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, that means that what? None of us are good enough. There's no room for pride. There's no room for arrogance. There's no room for prejudice. This explains why Jesus says what he says here, that aside from me, you can do nothing. And if there's another way, if there's some plan B out there, then Jesus died for nothing. If there's some other alternative. But the bottom line is, there isn't. Well, we're going to put a mark there. And I didn't even cover one verse, Ted. But let's just pretend I got through verse 11. Because it's the same idea. The same thought continues. And next week, when we get to verse 12, it sounds very, very familiar. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I've loved you. Where has he already said that? John 13, 34 and 35. Now he introduces that again here. And it's almost as if in John 13, 34 and 35, he says, as I have loved you, you should also love one another. Now he adds something to it here in verse 13 of John 15. Greater love has no man than this, but a man lay down his life for his friends. What's interesting about that is every one of the men in there would ultimately do that. They just didn't know it. So put a mark there, and Lord willing, we'll pick up at this point next week.